Yeah, let's go. Let's just dive right into it. Tell everyone who you are, what company you own, where you're based at, and we'll start there before we dive in deeper.
Okay. Uh, my name is Mason Domecq. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. I started a company called Divini. It's a honey kombucha that hit the market just over a year ago. So we're about 14 months in. We're all over Phoenix, Arizona. And not only are we a beverage, but we've like self-developed into so many other facets on media, on like music management, like booking musicians, into like doing full scale photo shoots, video shoots for clients at this point. Like we literally just had a full team meeting yesterday about kind of sparking up this media agency component of the brand. Um, and it's been so epic. I've met so many amazing people, not only like locally, but also through the beverage sector. Like we just had an incredible call with the people that scaled Red Bull. Like they started distribution in the United States with Red Bull this past week. So yeah, just meeting the craziest people, and it's been such a trip, so enjoyable to start.
So for those of you guys on top of that, and Mason's being super humble. He absolutely like we grew up together, like playing golf against each other. We didn't really know who each other were, but we were kind of competing in the same tournaments. We met through a
Oh yeah.
friend of a friend and just instantly hit it off. I think it was at poker the first time we met, right? Playing poker that one night.
You came over to, well, so the first recollection I have is when you were golfing one day and then you came over to our buddy Ryan's house
Right.
when we were linking up with Harry. And that's when I was
Right.
like, yo, I feel like I know you. And you were like, you
R-
golf? I was like, yeah, yeah. You were like, yeah, yeah.
Lost plenty of times. Mason's an absolute stick on the golf side. So just yeah, absolute stuff. You played college at where Ottawa?
Yeah, so I played 3 years Ottawa University, 3 years golf in there as well as college. And yeah, we had an amazing NAIA golf team, one of the top in the country. It was a great time to just play with a bunch of people. And it was also an amazing time because I realized that I didn't love golf enough, that you needed to
Yeah.
go professional, which I don't know, I got a text from the other night talking about a possible rerun. What's up with that?
Yeah, bro.
You getting some sparks in?
I was watching like you know how, like whatever you consume is kind of like it influences you. Like if you watch videos on how to
Sure.
grow your beverage brand, you're like, let's build the brand. If you
Let's go.
watch Rory win the Masters, you're like, dang, let's go win the Masters. Like
Yeah, yeah.
so I was watching some golf stuff and I was like, what if we gave it another shot? And it's a perfect segue I wanted to ask you about because I feel like I may different for you, but I didn't have the confidence growing up on the course and the drive to putt and put in the reps that we do or I do now during business. And so for you, like you were obviously a phenomenal player, still are. And but do you think that if you had the drive you have now to grow Davini to like where you like on the golf side, do you think you would
Yeah.
have seen better results if that makes
I,
sense?
Yeah, sure. I think mentally I'm in such a better spot. One, because I've dissociated my like game from my family. So now that like I don't have my dad, my mom, they don't have any expectations on me to pursue golf at all, right? Because I've just so there's no pressure from family. So which is good and bad. Like I think my parents, especially my dad, pushed me heavily, right, to be the best. He comes from a professional sports background in baseball, so the game was just on from day one. And I think growing up with those traits, I think it was good and bad. But I think what I understand now, like mentally, or more from myself, from like anything from anger management to why you're doing it, to why it shifts from like, hey, I can't wait to go hit the range at 6 p.m. after working all day, to then previously it's like, oh, I got to hit the range today at 6 p.m. I got to get my reps in. So where now it's like it's so much more of a privilege. So I don't know, it goes both ways, but then I feel like the same reasons you quit would come up again, because then it's like there's a reason why you didn't stick with it, to anyone who quits anything. And so then to go back to it seems a little illogical from like that perspective. But I think it'd be different depending on the situation of why you left, and if
Yeah.
that's reintroduced in a new profound way, then I feel like it would be it would be special going back in. So I don't know. I thought a lot about, obviously playing golf takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time. It's very isolating. It's very like individualistic. And at this point in my life, it's fun to, I go to so many. I was just, it's like I was out and about the other day, and I think I saw like four people I'd met in the past year and a half. Like the socialism, social, meeting people all the time. It's absolutely nuts, and you just don't get that when you're golfing because you're really just you in a golf course, and that's the battle. So I think there's ups and downs of it, but I'm liking this stage in life, and I'm excited to hopefully reintroduce golf later on, as whether it be amateur, low level professional, who knows.
Do you think what's led you to become successful in business? I know you're just getting started, but you've come such a long way already, raising, capital from outside investors and everything. Do you think you having that drive and that will to succeed and win as a solo individual golfer in sports and athletics has crossed over into that entrepreneur mindset that's led you this far?
I think the biggest crossover is probably the self accountability you acquire while golfing, because no one's there to push you. You kind of get this level of um, natural perseverance through yourself, as opposed to if you're on a sports team with multiple people. When you're going into practice, there's always a group with you. Like for football, you can't like, it's hard to practice the game of football by yourself.
Yep.
So chances are you're going to go with a bunch of group of people. They're going to push you, and then it goes kind of back and forth. With golf, there's when things get hard, it's like, well, things get hard all the time in golf, and it's just like the way you get through it is you either grind it out. If your putting sucks, you spend 4 hours on the putting green fixing whatever's wrong. Some drills, you go through routines, repetition. You go on the course. A lot of it's so much of it's solo. So when you're introduced to those challenges in business, you already develop the mental muscle to work through them. I think that's a big crossover.
So, who did you become so that you could be successful?
Yeah, in what ways? I mean, through
Traits,
self, through traits.
traits.
Okay, I think a big piece that I never really had as an individual was a a natural like inclination to almost like a host mentality. I think I've developed I've been very adamant on developing this host mentality, and what I mean by that is anything that you go to your favorite restaurant and you're seeing the owner of the restaurant, and they're going from table to table. Hey, what's up, Jim? Good to see you again. How's your kid doing? I saw you last week, man. Good to see you back in the restaurant. And he goes to the next table and he's like, Hey, Bill, how's it going, my man? Like, dude, how's that football game that last night? Oh, it was good. Okay, good. And you see this person kind of like working this room in its own, in the domain, the kingdom's the restaurant. That's what he's built. And he's attaching emotion, human connection to an operating entity. And I think that like host mentality is such a powerful mentality that can be transcended into any business, any whether you own a coffee shop or you own a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I think it's such a powerful concept, and I've developed those traits naturally just by. I've had when I quit my job to start Divinity, I got a part-time service job, and it's literally just hosting. You're just literally developing the skill of hosting, make sure everyone's always having a good time. Your presence when they first greet you, you look around the room and you kind of naturally anticipate someone's thoughts, whether it be like a drink or whether someone's uncomfortable, they're looking at the game, and they're like, oh, they probably need that TV change. Like you're just kind of anticipating what people are thinking, and I've tried to utilize that in everything we do, whether it be going to an event, helping someone throw an event, going to a business owner's store, working with them, not only about your product, but like hearing his whole problems about the store and getting to know the business owner. and really just developing genuine friendships with no real expectation that they're going to sell your product or they want your service, or that's just all secondary. Like the biggest thing is genuine friendships, no expectations, and then you have everything flourish from that base that you build with these people. I think that's business 101 right there.
It's funny how that when you go into that mindset, that actually does happen versus the sharks in business who go in with the hey, let me try to use the right line or say the perfect sentence. I mean, what I've always respected about you is you've taken massive action on your ideas. So like you put in blood, sweat, and tears into golf. You can't buy a good golf game. You can buy lessons. You still got to put in the
Yeah,
work. And so and then this drink company, you were doing M&A beforehand, and then you got into, which is, not exactly a, like, just a job you just quit out of nowhere. Like it was good paying. You had bright future, could work up the corporate ladder to start selling drinks, kombucha drinks out of thin air because you tried it at your friend's house, I believe was the story, right? One time.
yeah,
And now you look at you, you have a whole team, people on payroll, social media, like, but you're taking massive action and you're humble about it. And I think you and I both know there's some people in the space who aren't always humble, or they're kind of more like sharkies, like just sharks about it. But you take this approach of like you're confident, you're methodical, you think before you say something, which I don't always do. But you
sure.
also are very like just able to take action and execute on your game plan, which I don't know.
Hmm.
I've always respected that. And when you combine that with humility, it's I mean, it's just cool to see, dude, especially at a young age. You're what, 24, 25?
Yeah, just turned 25 in August. Yeah, no, I
Let's
appreciate it. I
go.
think first off, everything I do um, is powered and through God. I truly believe that. Um, and I've always been very religious, always been very faithful in everything I do. So I think I always act from a base of that. And then you know, as far as like separating myself from the ego of the flesh, ego of the man. So I think, anything I really want to benefit people. I want to inspire people. I want to, through not necessarily what I say, but more through what I do. And that's always going to be reputation. And, you know, again, reputation is something you can't buy. Like you have to earn reputation because it's literally, you take 100 people that know you, like what's going to be the average of what they think about you. And each of those people are going to have separate interactions of how you treated them, how you carried yourself, and they're all going to, behind closed doors, they're going to be like, hey, what do you think of that guy? Oh, all this one time, you know, he wasn't, da da
Mm-hmm.
da, and the story gets brewing. And
100%.
then, so I think that's an important note. And, yeah, I don't know. I've always just had a craving to try stuff. I've had a craving to meet and surround myself with quirky, weird, crazy people that are also share this like desire um, past the past the normal, whether it be through physical activities. I have a lot of good friends that um, have quote unquote average jobs, and next thing you know, they're running 30 miles after work because they're getting into ultra marathon running. It's like that's insane. Ultra marathon running doesn't pay the bills, but it's a passion beyond like it can't really be described to someone. So I just love when people are obsessed about what they want and like what they want to accomplish, and then it's like, hey, if you're in that alley, I will do everything I can to support you, call you up, see how you're doing, and just keep tabs on people. Keep tabs of who you really believe in, who you support in, and who you want to see win, and then collaborate with them when the time's right. And that's kind of just the ladder of you meet people, and there's always opportunities to work with amazing people throughout your whole life.
Totally. 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 When it comes to that faith piece you mentioned, being a Christian too, myself, how do you manage the faith aspect and then the money aspect of business? Which, we're in business at the end of the day. The only reason a business is in business is because it's made money to stay in business. So how do you balance that, the faith aspect, and then the I need to make money aspect in your daily life?
Yeah. I remember when I was working in investment banking, my vice president when I first started, he always I remember he told me, he said, the purpose of business is to make money. Never forget that. And it's just so true. Like, I don't know. I think when people look to join a business, the first thing they should be thinking about is, how do I make this business either more money or provide more exposure, but usually it all comes down to cash, because I mean, it's pretty insane actually once you start building, and then you realize next thing you know you have, a monthly burn of like 6 grand. And you're like, how did I get there? And you're like, okay. And then yeah, then it's a game of just matching, the inventory you have, what you're selling, or the surface you have, what you're burning, how many clients you have. So it becomes very like numerical, which I think is the opposite of what you want to be, which at the base of like ultimate giving, servitude. Um, so I think it's always remembering, I can't do what I want to do unless I have the freedom to do it. And a lot of times with that freedom, just having the financial means to be able to free up your time, because your time is always the most valuable. So as long as you can have your time free, and dissociate what does take up your time from what you inevitably feel like you're called to do in life, the more you can substitute that and then dive into what you're meant to do. I think that's how I view kind of balancing money and faith, and then always creating means to say at the end of the day, hey, the more time I have, the more freedom I have, the more impact I'm going to do. And if your intentionality is always on that, then I feel like very hard to be led astray.
Totally. I love that. It's funny how you say like it does the whole burn rate aspect of it. I mean, it's one thing to not make any money 1 month. Like you just, you don't make any money. Even if you're W-2, you quit your job, whatever, you don't make anything. It's another to lose money, like actually lose 5, 6, 10 grand, and you're working. Like you work the
So
entire month and you lose 10 grand.
yeah.
Like it's crazy, dude. This is why like people who hate on business owners, it's like they earned it, man. A lot, like a lot of them, they earned it. They put in the blood, sweat, and tears in the early days, and their team obviously is like that's like hopefully they're big on team, and that's what helps them get there and move there faster and build with more leverage. But this whole like hating on people, who've just spent their entire lives like just putting in the work, taking those down months, the team still gets paid, right? So it's funny how you like, yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, I think this should be like a requirement for every employee that enters a business. Like they should have to sit down with the owner, and the employee should be like, all right, like tell me like the top 10 things that's like impending stressing you right now. And it's
Yep.
because I think the more an employee can understand the base behind what's happening within a company, not only can they start to freeform ideas of how to solve problems. Um, like if you're working in a coffee shop, right? And a new employee comes in, let's say there's like 5 workers, so this is a sixth worker, and they say, hey, business owner, tell me your biggest problems right now. They're like, well, okay, we always run out of milk because we can't find a good dairy supplier. We've lost retention, so we went from capturing, let's say, people view our social media. They've 50% of the people end up like, well, let's say we capture 5%. So they see an ad on social media, they come in, we ask, hey, how did you find us? They say, oh, I saw your Instagram. So we're at 5% Instagram capture rate. Um, and I just can't figure out, our margins are really struggling right now. I think the cost of these supplies are going up, and I don't know whether to increase coffee. Okay, cool. So there's 3 problems. What if that person's like, oh, my grandparents own a dairy farm outside the city? Like they're always looking for new, like super, like there's people have the most randomest connections. I found out, like people know some wild, and you think that like your bubble's the only bubble that exists, and next
Right.
thing you know, you meet someone else, and they're like, oh yeah, I know, the CEO of transportation services. They do, like, You're like, oh wow, that's actually a big problem I'm looking to solve. Like, can we connect to them? Like, things just spiderweb so easily, and I think it's literally just a lack of communication, understanding from both parties. And so, the more someone can go into anywhere and understand the root problems of what's trying to be solved, and then at the base, like in business, you aren't valuable unless you solve problems. So, if you want to be a very valuable, skilled worker, you go into an organization with a list of ideas, and sure, like there's a lot of repetitive tasks every day that not only employees do but business owners do as well. No one wants to file payroll and do their taxes, and there's so many managerial stuff.
Yep.
And by the way, no one, school doesn't teach any of it, so not only do you have to self learn
Right.
it, but usually you don't even know how to do it. So you're
Right.
just failing forward. um but yeah, I think you should always go into any situation with an understanding of what the major problems are, and always working on not only the sustainability but also the perseverance of how to elevate everyone in the team and the business around you.
Yep. Don't you feel as if you were to ever go back to being an employee, you would be like the best employee ever? Like you
Yeah.
would like knowing what the expectations are as an owner. Now, if I were to ever go back to that world, I'd be like, oh, I need to do this, this, this. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like
See,
it's crazy.
yeah, I think yes. But no one wants to have two captains in the ship. So I
Right.
think
Right.
that's also an issue. And I mean, that was why I left my, honestly, like I most likely would not have started Divinity if I was working with people that genuinely wanted to grow their business. Like the
Mm,
art of what we're doing was super awesome actually. Like we had an amazing business model. There's two older gentlemen, and like we had three analysts, a vice president, and we would just literally just meet with business owners. They would tell us their whole life story. Usually it was like a second generation. So like the father built up this HVAC company, the son's now running it. Um, and we had one son that was like, he was an ex-cop and then he quit law enforcement to help his dad build a business. And they had like 500 subcontractors under him building houses, doing HVAC. Like it was crazy. And the son's like, hey, like I have this organization built up. I don't know how to transact. Like, what should we do? So we'd take all the financials. We'd do a full financial analysis of their 3-year running P&L balance sheets, everything. We'd run projections, and we would just reach out to all the parties that we thought would like to buy them out. We'd meet with buyers, and we'd go through this whole cycle of the buying process. And I mean, for one of the owners, we cashed him out like $50 million,
it's
and
crazy.
he paid off. He gave bonuses to all of his employees that had been there from the start. He like, I mean, that's enough to take care of 2, 3 generations at least
Yeah.
of a family, college. Like his whole family is set from this transaction, and I don't know the amount of helping out those people. Like it was so incredible, and it was super rewarding. And I think the only reason why I left was because of the management didn't really have a growth plan. Like I love building stuff. You don't want to be a part of an organization. You're kind of just some days you're just sitting around like because you want to be with people that are like, hey, we need to reach out to more people and we need to get more business, and I think that's just a natural longing for younger people. And once you
Hmm.
get past a certain age, I think even the most creative people, like your body starts to hurt. Like your kids are your empty nesters. There's comes like it almost becomes like a part-time hobby as opposed to when you're young, you're like, dude, I'm trying to get it. Like we need to ramp it up. And they're like, you know, so there's kind of a disconnect that I found with that particular position. So, that's what was cool about entrepreneurship and starting your own entity because the train moves as fast as you tell it to move. And
Right.
if you want to run 1,000 miles an hour, like literally nothing's stopping you. And the only thing that is stopping you is your game plan. So as long as you spend the time to divvy that up and always think, 20 steps ahead. I think every entrepreneur should like master chess. Like it's literally such an applicable skill. Like the way you think through chess is exactly how most high level operating owners think through running their organizations, whether it be like, because you could be thinking through, hey, like, okay, here's our end of year goal. Here's a business move I'm trying to make, this week. Here's something I'm accomplishing this day. And oh, by the way, I'm also running a business. So, I'm also managing drama between coworkers and I'm solving that. And so your hands in all these different aspects, and which is the fun of it. I think that takes a very unique person. Um, and yeah, it's just it's a fun way to operate, fun way to do business. And it's also a game. I think it's kind of cool to take a risk. And sure, you might lose some money. Money comes and goes. And if I think it always comes back to if you have self belief within yourself and you fail, you always figure out a way to make it back. Um, and because that's a sign of you as a person, not your circumstances. So why not try? That's how I think of it.
I like how you have that growth mindset. A lot of people, even business owners, man, they'll have that victim mentality. Like it's just not working, or it's like,
Yeah.
this doesn't work. Like they'll just like blame everyone but themselves. And dude, I'll take accountability for everything. I'm not perfect. I mess up all the time. But like, whenever, even if I buy something that doesn't work, I'll blame it on myself. That like, okay, maybe I didn't do enough due diligence. Maybe I didn't do this. Like, instead of just blaming other people, if I had made the wrong hire, I'll be like, that's on me. I didn't vet them hard enough. I didn't ask them enough
Mhm.
questions. Versus
Sure.
just blaming everything on them. Like it's really, at the end of the day, it's just taking that accountability. When it comes to your specific business, I mean, even life, I'm going to open this up to life, not just biz, but when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., what question keeps you awake?
Mm. I had a lot of those nights early on for sure. Um, I think because I just didn't know what to think about. So you stay up at night contemplating thought more than you do solving problems. Um, Nowadays, I feel like I'm so tired, I just like crash out. Uh, I don't have a lot of sleepless nights recently, which is good. I mean, that means I'm probably utilizing a lot of my time, or at least at peace by the time I go to bed. And then, usually wake up, you're like, shit, I gotta, you start
Yeah.
freaking out. um, but, it's like a pending, yeah, wake up, solve problems, think the world's gonna fall down, solve some more problems. You get content with it by the end of the night. Sometimes you don't, and then that's when the sleep nights come. But sometimes you do, and then you wake up and you just repeat cycle. Um, no, I think I don't know. I think a big topic is always like how to like I feel like deep down everyone knows what they want to do, and most people's like, oh, I want to help people. I want to leave a good impact. Like I feel like most people's intentions are really really pure. Um, if we're all made in the image of God and we represent characteristics of something bigger than us, then by nature we're all going to have attributes of that. And I think many people think everyone knows right and wrong. So from like a moral statitude, I feel like that's as a base. But then it's always like, how do I best? Then there's an efficiency component. People always they don't want to work aimlessly at something that they know they're not good at. You don't want to take someone that has insane social anxiety and make them president, put them on a podium in front of the whole world. They'll lose their mind. Um, to some extent, like some people need to go through trials like that so they develop as a person. But some people are naturally equipped for certain things. So it's like, hey, how do I match what I'm naturally good at and naturally love with this, imaginary thing that I haven't found yet? I think that's a really big battle and something I still go through with as well. Like there's characteristics of the beverage that I really like. There's characteristics that I think I could better use my time elsewhere. Um, but I think, again, as long as you can always see the end map, you like a really cool. I don't know if you've ever like had this thought or tried this before, but I think the there comes a point when you stop like being able to dream vividly. Like I feel like as a kid, whether it be nightmares or daydreams, or as a kid, you're always like dreaming, right? And as you kind of progress into life, you that it like kind of gets silenced, gets more and more diluted, and the more you can kind of keep that like child inside you, like that's kind of like the living life you have equipped it with as a person. And I think that's almost like how God speaks to you in ways like that gives you ideas. Like these ideas just pop in your head and you don't know where they come from, and you have these desires to do stuff, and it's kind of all imaginary. And then you then get to turn imagination into real life. That's like the craziest part of this whole life in general. And so I think the more and more you can kind of lean into that what if, and then not only lean into that as an individual, but then surround yourself with people that challenge and encourage and want to join you on your what if. Um, that's always the biggest thing I've looked for in what to do with my life, and will continue to be. And I think it always will be and will continue to be, whether it be through divinity or whether it be through a family or um, community impact or whatever. So it's always, I think, the biggest thing is finding always the right people you want to spend life with. And then if you're in good company, you could, be running a 200-mile race and it'll be fun. So I think that's a big theme. I don't. What do you think through? What do you think of that?
I mean, you touched on a lot of things I agree with. I think it's just a matter of like, you know, being Christian, but also realizing we're going to die, or we have such a finite amount of time. We're a floating rock in the middle of space. What are we going to
Mm-hmm.
do with our time here? Are we going to create? Are we going to build? Are we going to work at a cubicle? Like that's fine. Like there's no right or wrong answer. There really isn't. I just believe that if your intentions are pure and you help others and you solve problems, and that's going to change over time. I'm like, my offer is going to be different 5 years from now than it is right now. You, like drink company, you might, this might, I mean, it's less likely to change because it's more of a physical product. But
Sure.
it's like you move on to the next thing. You play the game. It's fun. It makes you awake. It keeps you. It's that excitement in life versus taking not having that. And then I think the people who move now and take action now, especially you know while they're young, and everyone's young. Like Ray Kroc started McDonald's when he was 60, or got into
Mm-hmm.
it, or Colonel Sanders or whatever. Um, they go for it. They go for it, and they don't look back, and they'll mess up, but they'd rather live with failure than regret. Because regret when you're 80 is just, I don't want that, man. Like I don't like to. I'd rather fail 10 times over, but no, I went for it, than to live with what if. So that
Mm-hmm.
what if piece you mentioned, key, massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think you should ponder on that heavily. And you shouldn't stop pondering on it until it claws at you so bad that you start doing.
Yep, yep. I want to ask you about imposter syndrome real quick.
Okay.
As a young founder, what are your thoughts around that? Do you take the whole stance of, it's not a binary, but do you think it's more on the, if you have imposter syndrome, you're just not working hard enough, you're just not good enough yet? Or on the side of like, hey, no, of course, yeah, this happens occasionally, and this is how I deal with it, and this is how we're planning on getting through it. Like, on what side of that continuum would you say you are, um, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think one, people that do great things never know that they're going to do great things. They end up just doing, and then time defines whether they do great things, usually by other people. So I think one, I think the concept of succeeding, or you define it anyway, is is also not binary, right? So like usually when people start freaking out, they've they've categorized success in one way or another, and they're failing at their definition of success. So, usually a good method to combat that is, I mean, I don't know, it goes both ways because you could say, okay, cool, I've spent 12 months working on this project. Let's say you're building an agency, and it's like, okay, now I'm 50 grand in the hole. You're like, damn, I'm failing right now. Well, it's like, okay, but what'd you do this year? Like, how well positioned are you to accomplish next year or the year after that? How many amazing people have you met that you're going to end up inevitably working with in the next 5 to 10 years? Um, you know, you taken and a large piece of trying something new is, I mean, you're going to naturally take a lot of risk both in time and finances because, and that's why most people don't do what they want because that transition, it's like it's an entire life shift. You can't just like kind of take a risk. Usually if you take the risk, it's going to be self consuming. Um, so I don't know. I've always just tried to go into a project with very well defined parameters that weren't necessarily based off of like financial, um, but again, to always have the intention of like, okay, cool, I need to build this into an entity. I have other people involved now. I need to make money. Um, but again, just like we talked about at the beginning, is all those other pieces are so much more important that will inevitably, if it's meant to be, will allow that to transpire. But it won't come unless you, again, focus on the things that you can't really have imposter syndrome with, which is great friendships, following up with people, caring. I mean, it's not like you can have imposter syndrome towards being a good person unless you feel like
Right.
you're evil. um,
Right.
so, so I feel like, yeah, again, just defining what success is at its base, and then letting what people define success as, hey, we're just not there yet. Um, and like you said, if you have good intention going into a project or something that you're building, then I feel like it's kind of hard for it not to work out. And
So how do you
how it's going to work
how
out is only that's up to God. So you can't even really worry about it.
how do you personally, in one sentence, define success?
I would say it's a good question. I would say um, I think it revolves around if I can go my entire day, if I can go about my entire day and be mentally, emotionally, physically like excited. Um, and I think like a big piece of that is waking up. Do I feel good? Um, do I have any impending like anxiety that I haven't taken care of in my life? Which again is totally, this is all like outside of having a fat bank account. Um, when I wake up, do I like when I stretch go like this? Is there a part of my body that's like in pain? Um, most people as they get old, like they everything just hurts, and it's actually crazy if you've ever had a big injury before, how like antsy and like mad you are when you're hurt. Like it's just so apparent. Um, and so I think yeah, right when you start your day, and then when you go into your day, like, are you excited for the project you're about to work on? And I mean, there's been points in my life, especially going into investment banking, like I was so excited to in front of a computer for 8 hours straight and like build a financial model on this company I was working for. Like that got me stoked. Um, things come in cycles. That's the cool thing about life because if you get bored, you can always change it because there's always new outlets. And I think a lot of people just don't, they're scared of like interrupting or like impending people. And you know, I think that's you just got to take ownership and be selfish with your time and what you're working on because yeah, I mean, people get in situations all the time. They're just not happy, whether it be a serving job or a business, or you can have someone super successful. They're still not happy. And it's like successful financially or successful, by leading a big company organization, CEO. So, being excited about what you're working on for that day. And then when you finish the day, like how well can you find peace within like the things that you've done? Like, can you be proud of yourself for what you just did throughout that day? And if an
Right.
entire day goes by and that all those things occur for me personally, then that's I've done a very successful day. If you do that all year and then for another year and another year, then that builds up into a lifetime.
I want to get more tactical in a minute, but to kind of round off the deep question side of things, what do you want to be remembered for?
Um, I would love. It's funny. I thought kind of like I don't know if you've ever done this thought exercise, but I think it's a really good one. I always encourage people to do it. Um, because again, this is why you're doing life. So if you could, it kind of goes back to that like that childlike state where you can visualize vividly, you can dream vividly. So I always and visualize like, okay, what does my life look like? Like really what does it look like when I'm 60, 65 years old? Do you visualize a big house of kids? Are you in a New York studio apartment with like your girlfriend and just like tearing up the city every night, having a good time, working on projects, living that life? Are you like rogue and you're just like traveling around, bouncing around, you know, enough money to just like cash flow your next ticket off of like some apartments you own? Like what does it look like? And and I think you can find that conclusion based on the what you just enjoy and love doing. For me, I really love food and beverage. I love building a fun brand around health, and I don't know, almost like helping to reprogram people that like health is fun, health is cool, and to put it in unconventional health outlets is it like a big focus of Divini right now. Like I would love to, be in every single gas station in the country, be the most popular beverage, just because of like our brand identity. But instead of having a bunch of crazy ingredients, just having like a very easy, digestible base level of consumable things that are in the beverage, where it's like, oh, cool, you built this amazing brand in like a worldly view, but at the base, it's like a nourishing product. I think that's super cool. And as that transcends in life, I feel like I would love to do that on like a larger food level. Like I would love to own a ton of land and grow a bunch of different vegetables and like supply a city with all of its food. Like through this one like selective curated organic field that like my team works on. Like that'd just be so cool to like take care of a city's food supply. Um, so I think about that a lot, and then like having like a farmhouse with like a family and workers, and then having dinners at night where you take crops like a bunch of fresh food and amazing culinary. I think like that food and beverage idea will transcend kind of throughout my whole life. Um, so I think that's like a big calling I have, and then to develop ways to have people experience that throughout their daily lives. I think is like cool, and when it's fun, I love it. It benefits society. Society needs it, especially the reprogramming of like how people treat their bodies. So being a force in that movement on the production side, consumer side would be super fun.
How did you go from this analytical M&A financial modeling suit and tie guy to this creative, more laid back, look at the hat you're wearing, Like
Yeah, right.
just, more like did you have to go through some identity shift that one day you just woke up and you're like, okay, this I'm more left brain, I'm more, I'm sure you still have that outside in you obviously when it comes to the P&L and stuff, but was that a was that a just a switch overnight? You woke up and said, "Let's do this." Like so it's on brand, or are you more was it more like just, gradual, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought I was like always going to be a shy, more awkward kid that like just worked on individual projects. And like that's why golf was so good for me in my early years because like I didn't want to go out and like party or talk to people. Like I just wanted to work on a craft. Um, and that like propelled me into hey, I probably like engineering, so I could just like get lost in my work and never talk to people. And then it was funny when I quit my job and started this. Um, I remember having a conversation with my dad a couple months after, and you got to remember he was like, "You have a great job. You probably shouldn't quit." And he was the one
Mhm.
that like ran a business for 25 years in the clothing industry.
Right.
Um, and I think he was just like he obviously knows all the hardships he went through, and it's like weighs on you. But there's things you can't know until you go through it. Even when someone tells you the whole story, you still got to go through it because you want to. And so I felt like I always had a side of me that like was a very social person, a very that like yeah got outside of that typical that more like stagnant workflow life, whether it be in finance or engineering or um, that was very like work centered. And yeah, I mean, I just got this itch to like, and I feel like it was always with me. And then again, I think I just kind of changed who I hung around with. Um, and I had a couple group of friends that, again, I've always, whoever I hang out with, I always like pick an aspect of their personality that I really like, that I like almost try to like adapt. Like I try to understand how they do it, and then I want to take part of their how they do it and like put that into my own repertoire. So I've had a friend that was an absolute like social, like insane social connector, super connector. I've had friends that's um, an amazing photographer, creative editor. I've had friends that's amazing musician that can pick up any instrument and like start playing it. um, like I love hanging around these individuals and kind of seeing how they just do their life and what mannerisms do they have. And it's like, okay, cool, is that a mannerism that I've like it's kind of been shadowed within myself that I can bring out by hanging out with this person. And so right when I quit my job, um, some of the first groups of people I started hanging with was just like a bunch of kind of like hippie creators, that they were into film and photography and drawing and artwork. And you like me having this backbone and this analytical, and then I think it was just like, hey, I'm really gonna dive into start exploring, and start like kind of feeding my mind with these creative like base ideas and thoughts. I think that's been a big part of it. So I don't know. There's like the root skills of what you bring to the table, and then how can you implement that with the desires that you want to bring out within yourself. And then it's always going to be people. It always goes back to people. Who can you hang around? Who can you learn from? And how can you kind of, when they're gone, there's like a part of them that always shows within you, whether it be a mentor or a friend or anyone. So that's like, I feel like I always had it within me, and then I started hanging around the right people that brought it out of me.
How do you go about building relationships when you're at these events so that it's genuine, not transactional, but actually genuine for years to last? Um, I'll elaborate more on why I ask in a minute, but I'd like to hear your answer first.
Mm-hmm. I think. I mean, I've probably gone to 100+ events at this point, all ran by some overlapping people, but mostly different people, all throughout Phoenix, California, um, and I don't know. I think so. One, I think it's like, hey, any opportunity I get to put product in front of people and tell my story and have people try it, like, boom, sign me up. And then step two would be, okay, is this the kind of an event and atmosphere that this person's curated that kind of reflects their own personality? Is this something that I personally enjoy? Because you're just not going to enjoy something that you don't like being there. You know, how can you sell your best product or service when you're not even enjoying yourself? And you as a vendor, it's different if you go to a conference and you have a product and you're on a team. Like it's very like mission driven. Whereas like if you're the creator of this product, you're trying to latch yourself onto something like that's that says a lot about that's a big deal. And people are going to associate. If you put your logo next to a brand, they're going to start associating. Like it's all street credit. That's rep right there. And so then it's like, okay, what does this event mean to people? Do people think highly of this event? And then it's like, okay, now who's the organizer? Do they have traits that emulate my ideologies as a business owner? And then are they easy to work with? Like I just there's not enough time in the day to work with people that are hard to work with, no matter how much money they can get you or how much exposure they can get. It's never worth it, and you'll always find someone that is fun to work with that can provide close to, or if not past that level of value that person does. Um, and then I think can I develop a friendship, like close friendship? I mean, at the base, I think it's wise to always do large and high level business with people that you just enjoy spending time with. It's like being a part of a team. Like you don't want to be on a team that doesn't value who you are, or that you go into work and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to hang out with Jeremy and Angela and these are my coworkers. Like, um, so I think you gotta really enjoy who you partner with in general, and then just let the relationship just develop into a friendship. And then I always go into anything like with give first mentality. So, if I'm trying to go to events, I'm like, hey, okay, I'm going to bring some photographers. I'll bring this buddy and I'll bring drinks. And, oh, you're giving us this space. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll set up a menu and, try to provide a lot of value up front. And then you go to events, you bring up a great vibe. Like you're going to leave and they're going to be like, wow, that was a great group to work with. Like they really elevated my event. So anytime you can do that at any level is huge. So that's how I kind of think through who I work with and the events we do.
What do you think specifically when it comes to us has caused us to stay friends over the years, even though we don't live together, we don't see each other every week?
Yeah. Um, I mean, from my perspective, it's like we have one of those friendships where, and I have this with a couple people where we won't talk for a while, and then we'll get on something like this, and it's just like you're just hanging out. And so I think like at a baseline, we're quite similar in our beliefs, um, and we think deeply about things. Like we're very passionate, we care a lot. So I think it's just easy to exchange ideas back and forth and relate on a lot of topics. A lot of overlapping interests. We both got great beards. It just goes both ways.
Respect. What respect, mad respect. I agree. From a self-awareness perspective, what is your biggest weakness and your biggest strength?
um, I think my biggest weakness is that I I'll like never, and this is apparent in business as well. I'll I'll like overly give a lot of times, and like my business partner checked me on this, which is why at like a friendship level, I feel like it's always good to have compatibility, and you need a compatibility within a team, right? Because I mean, I spend more time with my coworkers than I do with my girlfriend or my family. So I think there's a lot of like you need strong compatibility, but you also need almost like you need a strong think tank where you just don't have a lot of you don't have a ton of yes men and women in your circle. You need people that challenge ideas, and so like when people are obviously like not that might be like using you or your brand or um, in situations where you probably like need to demand either that I don't know that you get more of a piece of the deal or
Taken advantage of, yeah.
yeah like I'd love just like servitude service and giving and people will definitely take advantage of that if you give them the opportunity to, no doubt.
Yep.
There's and that's just how again it's the name of business. And when people don't have to when people don't when you don't tell them they don't got to pay you, they ain't gonna pay you. When you don't tell them that you need to be, oh, we're gonna do this event, we're gonna give all this, all right, we need to be your primary sponsor, and you just have us on a title on this and that, and if you don't ask them, you'll never get it. um, and so I feel like I have a lot of give first, and then what often happens is my business partner's like, hey, they're not doing enough of that, they need to be doing that, and I'm like, well, they're just we're helping them out, and it's like, so I think it goes back and forth on that. So being cognizant of that, being overly, you know, giving when again you're running a business, so
It's a
always
pretty
got to
good
be aware.
weakness to have, though. That's a pretty good weakness to have. If you're like, my
Yeah,
weakness is in everything is I just give too much. Like, bro, that's
yeah,
that's that's not,
yeah.
that's
I
pretty
mean,
good. You're a better man than me. You're
hey man, um, yeah. I don't know. I've always just focused on that, and it's done me really well in life.
yeah.
It's burnt me a couple times, but you know, I think overall it's been a very good thing. But I can think of uh, many situations that it hasn't been good. Um, so I can specifically, yeah, in that I see that as something I could just be like more firm with, more
Yeah.
more upfront with expectations, communication. Also, I kind of just like did. I think this is a one big thing actually. I don't know if you experienced this, but going back to the golf conversation, because I've done an individual sport my entire life. When I do have to start getting into like managing people or like assigning tasks, like I'm so good at like leading by example, but then I'll just keep doing. And then like my team's like, yo, like I thought, I was supposed to work on this, but now you're doing it. I was like, oh yeah, I just like started doing it. They're like, well, like you never told me. And it
Right.
happens all the time. That was a big thing that I struggled with in the first year of like having a business partner and bringing an employee on. Like I would just total lack of communication. Um, and it's literally like you have like multiple girlfriends, like that you got to update
Yeah.
because you just
Yeah.
got to like if I'm going to like after this call, Miranda just called me and I need to text her. She's probably like, "What the heck? Where's Mason?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm on a podcast." Um, and then let's say Cam went and got coffee or something. I need to like update. I don't even know if I told them I was doing a podcast. They're probably like, "Where the heck's Mason?"
That's
So
funny. That's funny. You can
yeah,
text
so
him
just
if you want.
communicating efficiently. Yeah, yeah, no, we're good. Um, so that I definitely do. I feel like my biggest strength though has been, um, yeah, just caring. I think thinking deeply, being like empathetic toward like always recognizing why people do things, being very well capable of putting myself in their shoes, um, and getting to the bottom of like behavioral, like psychology. Um, just because I don't know, I always look for, like, I always see the best in people by nature, and from that standpoint, if someone does something that I thought they shouldn't be doing, then it's more of like it's less like condescending, like, oh, why'd you do this? And it's more like, hey, I noticed you did this. Like, are you okay? Or like, I know you don't act like that. Like, what's going on? Which opens up, and so it's almost like a motherly.
Yeah.
That's more of like a feminine approach. That which I do because I gain a lot of personality traits from my mom for sure. I'm being like a very kind person, so from like a behavioral psychology standpoint, I try to take that approach a lot, which I think de-stresses a lot of people, or when things are tough, like it's very, I like just being very calm, saying, okay, cool, that's all right. Like we'll sort through it. Um, I think that's a big piece I focus on. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And to kind of round it out, when it comes to, I want to touch on girls as a business owner, as young, whatever, good beard. What I think you have a girlfriend you mentioned now. I know last time, like it's been like, we've both gone through those waves. But where do you see a girl in your life? Do you believe it's more like, hey, let's build a garden and then the butterfly will come? Do you think it's more, if it happens, it happens? Do you think it's, I'm going to put that off, or no, I'll take one right now and let's go? Like, what is your thought concept around that uh, in the dating scene?
Yeah. I don't know, I've known a lot of people that have gone both directions. Like, I think it's so amazing when you do meet someone young and you develop that bond with them, both knowing you're not where you want to be in life and then figuring out life together. Like, that's such a beautiful thing. I've had friends that never like find that early on, so they just keep building. And then, you know, it's hard then to like trust a lot of people, I think, because then you've gone through all this struggle, and then it almost has to like you have to find someone that matches that like you
Yeah.
can relate to, which just becomes more and more curated over time. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's also tough. Like divinity is going to be such a big part of my life, and so to meet someone like during this time is really cool. Because who knows what the future will hold, but um, having this is like understand like I like meeting someone after this and like them not even being associated with this part of my life, like like it's such a big piece that it's cool to have someone around that you anticipate spending you know a long time with um early on to experience that. So that's how I don't think either way is right or wrong. But I think if you do find someone early on, I think you should double down. Like the right woman will not only ground you but encourage you, like speak life into you in so many ways that the boys just can't do.
Damn, that's deep. That's deep. Do you think it's better to have a girl who's more business mindset, like let's grow this together, help you through that, like a power couple dynamic thing, or more of like a, hey, just someone who knows nothing about the business, but it's like a break from everything that you can, then go back to and hang out with?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the personality of the guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I met this guy that he's like a rock star on like production and like the craft. But he's absolutely helpless on marketing and like the social aspect piece, right? And then his girlfriend came in. He had to like pitch his girlfriend to like, hey, I have this idea. And then once like started to get some sales, she's like, all right, I'll help you out. And then they started to make some good money on it. And then she's like, oh shit. So now like she kind of like runs the ship in a lot of ways,
Dang.
which is awesome dynamic. It's pretty, yeah, like power couple. Let's go. I
Crazy.
love that.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
and yeah, like I mean, that's like that social piece for me. Like that was when I met Cam. Um, Backstory: I met my business partner with Tyler on a golf course. Um, God bless. And that was that like that dynamic with that relationship. Like that's me and Cam, which is awesome. But instead of it being in the form of a girlfriend, it was like a friend that turned into a business partner that's remained a friend. So that piece, for me, like my current girlfriend, she's insanely smart, articulate, like motherly, caring. Um, and she was actually doing like a podcast setup similar to this. in the health scene a while back. So she's very like business savvy. But I think her biggest characteristic is she's just like such a like mother loving energy, um, like nourishing, encouraging, and like building people up. I think it's one of her biggest attributes. So even having that, like being able to come home and like have someone with that like mindset of being able to think through or to understand like the problems I'm working through, and then she doesn't like help me try to solve them like from a fundamental like solvable standpoint. It's just like it's more of like psychology or mental behind like emotional of like what I'm going through, and then how to empower me to solve those better, you know? Or like she's very faithful to like sort of pray about things, which like calms anxieties and so many of those attributes that a lot of probably dudes just don't focus on. It's just like, dude, I just need to go harder.
We got to
You
catch
can.
up because I haven't heard. I got to hear more about this behind the scenes on when you met and
Yeah,
everything. I don't.
it's hard.
This, some
No shit.
there's been an update since the last time we've talked.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So I love it, dude. That's awesome. Well, to round things out, what's the best what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think I don't know. I'm torn between two that I've lived with for a big part of my life. I think first names are the most important thing you'll ever know about someone. I've carried that as when I started being very intentional with who I network with, who I get to know, and being able to walk in any room and you recognize someone and you could say, "Yo, what's up, Jerry? Good to see you, bro. I haven't seen you since this party." And like go in with that, they're like, "Oh shit! Like you remember me? You know who I am?" And then to be able to do that with, you know, hundreds of people around you, like mastering that trait has been like life changing for me in so many ways. As opposed to you walk in a room, you're like, "Oh, I think I know that person," and then you just never end up
What's
saying
up,
hi.
brother?
And in that
It's
moment,
the worst.
yeah, what's up, brother? Or you're like, "Oh fuck, what's his name? Like I should know his name," and then you just never approach him. Like in that moment, you've boom, you just built a wall between this person.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's huge. And I mean, the age old, like you're the summation of the top five people you spend your time with. I think that's, um, and they're both around people. So I think, understand people deeply and you will do very well in life.
I love it, man. Thank you for coming on. I want to say, everyone, go get Davini if it's at your local gas station or where can people buy it? Because I've had it. It's amazing. I don't even like kombucha, but it's really, really good. I order it whenever I go to the cigar bar. Um, I
Go.
mean, yeah, like where can people buy it? Where can people find you at? There it is.
We're about to change our label a little bit, but it'll remain Divini as our brand name. Yeah, I mean, we got into 30 local stores here in town. We're gonna do a big re-up. I have a grocery store deal cooking right now, in line with our next production run, which would be absolutely monumental to this whole operation. So I'm looking to, yeah, continuing to get the right partners involved in that. It's funny, even you could in business you could even have all the money you want or you think you want to be able to do stuff, and you still couldn't do it to the level that you need to because of everything outside of that finances provide. Understanding the right people, the knowledge of how to accomplish said tasks that you're trying to do. So it's been a big progressive step of just like meeting the right people in the industry that I can move these pieces with together. That again, I'm not 25. I've only been in the beverage industry for going on just over 2 years now. But when you're able to work with someone that's been in the beverage industry for 30 years and another that's been in this aspect that you're trying to solve for past 7 years, so you're able to almost build like a dream team of people that you can rest easy knowing that they know how to solve the problems, and then your job is to just be the conductor and the coordinator and make sure the engine's churning. Um, and yeah, so all those things going forward. We'll be in Phoenix probably for the next year, um, and then looking to expand outside of that thereafter. Once we kind of get a really good grip, especially through distribution, that's kind of the next step for us in town. Yeah, livedivini.com website. Check us out and find us in your local store soon.
Let's go. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
My man.